The grand convocation chambers shimmer with light, refracted through crystal domes, casting patterns on the obsidian floor like dancing stars. Representatives from 100 worlds sat in tense silence, their various eyes, appendages, and sensory nodules turned toward the central dais. The Galactic Council, the ancient bastion of peacekeeping and interstellar order, was rarely so full. Its massive amphitheater had not hosted this many species since the end of Chquari's rebellions 5 centuries prior. But peace, like a star, was always burning away. From her elevated position, Ambassador Thalvok of Zorelia surveyed the room with the steady patience of someone who lived twice the average lifespan of most species present. Her iridescent robes whispered around her feet as she stepped forward. The ambient light caught the facets of her lavender skin, giving her the appearance of a living gemstone. Her expression was unreadable, serene perhaps, but her inner thoughts were anything but calm. Beneath her composed exterior churned a storm. She knew what was coming. The vote, the declaration, the war. At the far end of the chamber, in the sector reserved for the Revelant Confederacy, High Strategist Myrex clicked his mandibles, his voice like knives on glass. We cannot wait any longer. The humans refuse to submit to integration. They expand unchecked. They build weapons the likes of which we cannot anticipate. Are we to stand idle while they arm their colonies on the edges of civilized space? His words were met with a murmur of agreement. The Tan emissary, a gelatinous being encased in a mechanized exosuit, pulsed a deep shade of red, approval. The murmurs swelled, echoing off the chamber walls like thunder about to break. Thalvok inhaled slowly. She did not need oxygen, not in the way others did, but the ritual of breath grounded her. This was not her first attempt to steer the council away from destruction, but today felt different. The temperature of the room had changed. There was heat where once there was cold calculation. She stepped forward. Esteemed delegates. Her voice carried across the chamber, assisted by sonic harmonizers that matched her intonation to each species' language. You speak of fear, of potential, of what humans might do. You speak of preemptive action, as if it were necessity. But I ask you, do you understand what you are proposing? Myrex rose again, his dark carapace gleaming. We understand that inaction leads to ruin. They refuse to join the accord. They harvest forbidden energy from collapsed stars. Their military simulations show alarming success rates. Even our war simulators fail to account for their unpredictability. The last probe we sent never returned. This is no longer politics. This is self-preservation. Thalvok met his glare with a calm that defied the charged air. Your simulations fail because humans do not think like us. They don't fight like us. And they most certainly do not die like us. You are correct to fear them, but not for the reasons you think. A flicker of silence. Then, from the delegation nearest your projection, a voice spoke, small, uncertain. It belonged to a lesser-known species, the Venery, whose cultural stance was often neutrality. Then tell us, Ambassador, what should we fear? Thalvok turned slightly, her posture unwavering. Not their weapons, not their technology. Fear their persistence. Fear the species that taught themselves to fly not by waiting for wings to evolve, but by building machines to defy gravity. Fear the ones who set foot on the moon of their planet not to survive, but simply say they had done it. A pause. They have lost entire cities to war and rebuilt them in less than a decade. They have created machines capable of love and destroyed forests that had stood for millennia. They are creatures of chaos and contradiction, and in that chaos lies their greatest strength. The central sphere above the council pulsed to life. A holographic rendering of Earth hovered in the space above them, slowly rotating. Cities sparkled in clusters of light, webbed with movement and noise. Spaceports flickered like stars along the dark side of the planet. In a human nursery, Thalvok continued, children play games that simulate conquest. They tell stories of empires rising and falling, not to mourn them, but to inspire themselves. Their heroes are often those who sacrifice everything, sometimes even morality, for the survival of their people. This is a species that practices war not only with weapons, but with imagination. And imagination is something no algorithm can predict. The silence that followed her words felt different. Heavy, not just with tension, but with thought. Myrex hissed, You romanticize them. They are mammals with guns. We have subdued worse. No, Thalvok said, her voice firm now. You have not. She took one final step to the edge of the dais. Her tone shifted, the measured cadence of diplomacy replaced with something colder, older. I have seen what humans become when cornered. On Deneb's third moon, when the Revelin landed troops without provocation, it was human civilians, farmers, engineers, who repelled them, not a military unit, not trained assassins. Civilians. They used electromagnetic pulses from mining tools to blind your scanners. They poisoned their own water supply to force your troops to retreat. They turned their dead into traps. You lost over 1,000 warriors to a farming village. Myrex recoiled slightly, but said nothing. Thalvok pressed on. You think war is conquest. For humans, war is legacy. They do not fight for territory. They fight for memory. They do not die for leaders. They die for children not yet born. Across the chamber, even the tan emissary had turned an opaque gray, a signal of contemplation. And if you make them fight us, Thalvok said softly, they will not stop until one of us is gone. A quiet rustle broke the silence as the human ambassador entered the chamber at last, arriving late with deliberate purpose. Commander Elaine Voss, in a black and cobalt uniform, walked with the confidence of someone who had stood on planets that no longer existed. She gave a small nod to Thalvok, her expression unreadable. The gesture did not go unnoticed. Whispers moved like wind. The council would vote tomorrow, war or diplomacy. But something had shifted. The chamber slowly began to empty, but many lingered, their eyes still on projection of Earth, rotating, silent, watching. Thalvok turned away, her face shadowed by the flickering lights. She had done all she could. The future now rested in hands that knew both creation and destruction as tools of art. In the corridor beyond, Commander Voss caught up to her. You spoke well, Voss said. I spoke truth, Thalvok replied. Voss paused. Will it be enough? Thalvok looked back once at the emptying hall. For those who are wise, yes. For the rest, I pray they never find out. And together, they walked into darkness between stars. Rain lashed against the reinforced windows of Outpost Echelon, a black tower rising like a fawn from the desolate plains of Mars's southern hemisphere. Inside, beneath layers of alloy and sensor mesh, the chamber's lights pulsed dimly, synced to the breath of the station's AI. The humans gathered around the central table were silent, their attention fixed on a rotating hologram, a wireframe projection of the Galactic Council's chamber, captured from a spy drone embedded within the Zarelian ambassador's crest. Commander Elaine Voss leaned forward, her gloved hand outstretched. The recording paused just as Thalvok's face filled the frame, regal and grave. Her warning echoed to the chamber once more, though softer this time, like a whisper of prophecy. They will not stop until one of us is gone. Voss looked at the others. General Imani Kurosawa, aging but unbent, narrowed her eyes. Across from her sat Miles Kinnick, cybernetics liaison, and once a child of Earth's ruined equator, now more machine than man. And near the edge of the table, arms folded in expression unreadable, was Ava Tran, data warfare specialist, and a ghost in most enemy systems before they even knew she was there. She gets it, Ava said finally, nodding toward Thalvok's frozen face. Imani grunted. Too late, maybe. She's bought us time. Voss said, what we do with it decides if we get a future or just another page in someone else's archive. Kinnick tapped a sequence on the table, and a second hologram bloomed. This time a rendering of the Battle of Titan's Edge. Red markers swept across the map, overwhelming blue defensive lines. The conflict had lasted 23 hours. Humans had been outnumbered 5-1, with inferior ships and only a fraction of orbital control. The victory had cost them everything, but had rewritten the rules of interstellar warfare. They thought we'd fall back, Kinnick said. Standard doctrine would have called for a retreat to preserve remaining forces. But Captain Roa locked the fleet in a gravity well and used it to slingshot debris into the enemy flagship, crippled it, then sent drones into the wreckage broadcasting surrender codes. And while the Revelin were celebrating, Ava added, "We detonated the core of our own carrier inside their second wave, took out 37 warships. Human ships turned into weapons. We didn't fight. We detonated our own dead metal." Imani's voice was quiet. "We buried 5,000 personnel. But we won. It wasn't about numbers," Voss said. "It was about belief. We made them believe that we would go to any length. No protocol. No lines. Just the mission." The table fell silent again. Outside, the storm continued its relentless assault. "That's what the Council doesn't get," Ava murmured. "We're not fighting for territory. We're fighting because we remember being prey. We remember the dark." She pulled up a file, grainy footage from early human space exploration. A shuttle drifting through the void, its crew patching a life support leak using duct tape and a spoon. Laughter echoed faintly in the background, mixed with static. It was absurd, beautiful, and horrifying. "We fight like we live," Ava whispered, "with whatever's left." Voss paced slowly around the table. "We need to anticipate the Council's factions. Some will send envoys. Others might come with observers who just happen to be equipped for assassination. And the rest? They'll test our resolve with small incursions, data corruption, diplomacy laced with subversion. And when they do," Imani asked. Voss turned. Her voice was low but sharp. "We respond like humans." It was Miles who spoke next, unexpectedly. "They don't understand our species because they've never been desperate. Not like us. Their histories are curated. Peace through inheritance. War for territory. They evolved in order. We evolved in chaos. They don't have stories about eating bark during nuclear winters or sending children into factories to keep lights on. We survived ourselves." He paused and added, "That's why they can't simulate us. There's no algorithm for what it's like to have lost everything and still invent music." The room absorbed his words like oxygen. Then Imani straightened, steel in her posture. "Commander, if we're going to win this, we need more than speeches. We need deterrence. We need to show them the shadow under our skin." Ava smiled darkly. "Then show them Lazarus." Voss hesitated. For a moment, her eyes betrayed the weight she carried. Lazarus wasn't a protocol. It was a consequence. A war strategy designed not for victory, but for extinction. A chain of automated retaliatory programs. AIs with no governors. That would awaken only in the event of planetary loss. Their sole function, retribution. "No," Voss said. "Not yet. Not unless we lose Earth." Kinnick nodded slowly. "Then we plan for everything up to that line." The hologram shifted again, this time showing the psychological profile compiled by Terran Intel on human behavior in conflict scenarios. Key traits: irrational optimism, tribal loyalty, improvisation under stress, strategic use of narrative framing. Ava tapped the last item. "This is what scares them. We use stories as weapons." Voss looked to her. "Then let's give them a story they'll never forget." And so, plans were drawn. Code lines encrypted, ships retooled, ambassadors briefed. Humanity would not strike first, but if provoked, they would answer in ways the Council could neither anticipate nor recover from. They would not win by strength alone. They would win by being ungovernable. Far above, in a civilian education module orbiting Neptune, a class of 10-year-olds practiced problem-solving through simulated alien diplomacy. One child, having accidentally triggered war in a scenario, responded not with surrender or apology, but by asking for 5 minutes to build something cool. When the observers watched, they saw the child upload an entirely new language algorithm that confused the simulation so thoroughly it shut down. The others clapped. The child shrugged. "Didn't want to lose," she said simply. Back on Mars, the final light in command room dimmed as Voss stood alone, watching the Council's projection fade. Her reflection shimmered briefly in the polished table. Just a soldier, human and finite, standing between her species and the abyss. She did not smile, but she did not look away. Somewhere in the stars, they were watching, waiting. Let them. The chamber was silent save for the faint pulse of the biometric wall, breathing in sync with the team inside. The Council ship, Sanctity of Thought, loomed outside the viewport. Its elongated frame bathed in violet starlight, a shimmering testament to millennia of diplomacy and cautious expansion. To most species, its arrival would be a symbol of mediation. To the humans aboard the Ardent Halo, it was a signal flare. Judgment was here. Commander Elaine Voss stood at the observation deck, her arms clasped behind her back. From this vantage, the Council cruiser resembled a leviathan wrapped in scripture, its hull engraved with treaties and universal edicts. But no peace ever came without pressure. And this meeting was no act of goodwill. It was a test. Behind her, the team prepared in silence. Ava Tran worked through final firewall layers, injecting adaptive neural scripts into the communication protocols. Miles Kinnick calibrated his ocular implants, eyes flickering with machine cursive overlays. General Imani Kurosawa, flanked by 2 silent guards, reviewed strategic contingency folders, not with hope, but with precise resignation. Every movement in the room was deliberate, every breath measured. At precisely 0200, the message came. Human representatives, approach unarmed. Translation protocols will remain active. Any disruption will be interpreted as aggression. Voss nodded once. Let's go. The airlock hissed open to reveal a corridor of living light. The interior of the sanctity pulsing with soft hues that responded to thought. The delegation stepped inside, their Terran uniforms stark against the organic walls. An escort awaited them. Council Sentinel drones, floating silently, armed with energy dampeners and memory sealers. At the chamber center sat the Council's representatives, a convergence of 10 species, each more alien than the last. Thalvok, the Zarelian ambassador, presided from the upper dais, her form shimmering in resonance with her people's ambient nervous systems. Beside her stood Chancellor Velari of the Thren Collective, draped in kinetic robes that shifted form with every thought. And at the far end, concealed behind a semi-translucent veil, sat the true threat, Urushin of the Venkai, whose people had never lost a war and never considered compromise a virtue. Voss stepped forward. I speak for Earth and its allied colonies. Velari's voice was melodic, almost sorrowful. You arrive with defiance stitched into your shadow. Do you not see the danger in standing apart? Standing apart is the only way we survive long enough to be at this table, Voss replied. Urushin moved slightly, the motion triggering an atmospheric tension in the room. You are a young species with weapons older than your ethics. The concern is not whether you can destroy. It is whether you can choose not to. Ava stepped forward. You fear us because you don't understand us. And you don't understand us because you assume symmetry. That what motivates you, restrains us. It doesn't. Thalvok's eyes shimmered. You are chaos. Not chaos, Kinnick interjected. Adaptation. You think survival is obedience to rules. We learned survival meant knowing when to rewrite the rules. The Council murmured in its multitude of frequencies. A nearby wall displayed flashes of human history, wars, revolutions, the digital awakening, the burning of old cities and the building of orbital sanctuaries. The footage shifted to more recent events. The siege of Europa's dome, the Martian pact with the Centauri, the disintegration of the Relan incursion over Mercury. Velari's tone sharpened. Your victories echo with extinction. The Council cannot tolerate unbound escalation. You mean you can't control it? Voss said quietly. Silence spread like ink through water. Finally, Thalvok raised a hand. We have convened to issue our final stance. The human race will be subjected to cultural limitation protocols. No technological exports. Restricted travel beyond neutral systems. Genetic observation enforced by third-party drones. No. Imani's voice rang like metal dropped in an empty chamber. We're not a child to be leashed. Urushin hissed through the translator. Then you are a threat. Voss didn't flinch. Then treat us as one, and suffer the cost. The air in the chamber shimmered. Council guards bristled, power cores humming just beneath lethal thresholds. One step too far, one word misjudged, and this would no longer be a conversation. It would be the start of a war that legends would call suicidal. Then Thalvok did the unexpected. She stood. Perhaps we speak too much of fear. Even Velari turned, startled. Thalvok stepped down from the dais, approaching Voss. Her gaze bore into the human commander with the weight of civilizations. "You defy the cycle," she said. "Most species reach a threshold, technological mastery followed by spiritual surrender. You have no surrender. No universal doctrine. Not even unity. You fracture and yet persist." Voss nodded slowly. "Because we never believed we'd be saved by anyone else." Thalvok considered that. "That is either madness or genius." "Sometimes both," Ava muttered. The Zarellian turned back to the council. "I propose a trial. A joint operation. Let the humans lead a diplomatic crisis on behalf of the council. If they succeed, they retain autonomy. If they fail, limitations proceed." Yurishin bared his bioluminescent fangs. "This is folly." "It is survival," Thalvok replied. "Because if we force their extinction, they will drag us into the fire with them. And unlike the humans, we are not ready to live in ashes." There was no immediate agreement. The council debated in overlapping frequencies for 99 seconds. To humans, it felt like standing beneath a storm cloud full of unreadable lightning. Then Velari spoke. "Let it be done." The holographic map flared to life, centering on a region near the Tarsus Rift, a dying colony world caught between two warring empires, the Dravari and Silantri, neither members of the council, but both powerful enough to destabilize trade networks. The council had tried peace. Both sides had refused. The colony's children had begun dying from resource collapse. "Resolve it," Velari said. "Without war. And if war is the only language they speak." Voss asked, "Then teach them yours." The chamber dimmed. The escort drones disengaged. As the humans stepped back onto the Arden Halo, no one spoke for a long time. Back in the command room, Kinnick stared at the new coordinates. "We're being asked to be diplomats in a burning house." Voss exhaled slowly. "Then we negotiate like fire." Ava cracked her knuckles. "Let's show the galaxy what human peace really looks like." As the ship turned toward the rift, stars streaming past like memories yet to be written, a single message from Thalvok arrived on secure band. "The galaxy watches. Be terrifying." Voss allowed herself one moment of stillness. Then she looked ahead, past the bulkhead, into the vast unknown, and whispered what every human knew by instinct, if not by training. "Let them.